Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin with a truth that may unsettle you. Most people are not waiting for love. They are waiting for rescue. They imagine that someone somewhere will arrive like a savior to fill the void of their loneliness, to quiet the chaos of their insecurity, to fix what they themselves refuse to confront. But here is the hard question you must wrestle with tonight. If the person you're praying for appeared at your door tomorrow, would you actually be ready to love them, or would you crush the very gift you've been crying out for? Why is it that so many struggle in relationships? Is it simply the cruelty of fate, some twisted lottery of the heart, or is it the unavoidable consequence of our own character, our habits, our impatience, our refusal to grow? Think about it. How many times have you seen someone leap into love out of desperation only to find themselves emptier than before? Not because love failed them, but because they had nothing within themselves to sustain it. Picture the quiet H of a man lying awake at night, scrolling through his phone, convincing himself that no one could ever truly choose him. Picture the woman, heart heavy, whispering to God, "Have you forgotten me?" These are the moments where loneliness gnaws at the soul, where desperation masquerades as hope. And yet, what if this very season of waiting is not rejection, but preparation? What if the silence is not absence, but divine orchestration, shaping you into someone who can carry the weight of covenant? I need you to hear me clearly. Waiting for the right person is not about passivity. It is not a punishment. It is an assignment. God never asked you to sit idly and hope. He asked you to prepare, to grow, to strengthen yourself spiritually, mentally, emotionally, so that when union comes, you do not break under the glory of it. Desperation repels, wholeness attracts. And the greatest tragedy is not that you have met the right one. It is that you might not recognize them when they come, because you never became the person capable of receiving them. So let me leave you with this undeniable truth. The wait is over the moment you decide to stop begging for love and start building yourself into someone who can hold it. That's not fate. That's not luck. That's divine timing colliding with personal responsibility. And if you grasp that tonight, your life and your love story will never be the same. Let's start here. If you cannot govern your own life, what makes you think you can sustain the life of another? That is the problem with so many modern relationships. People want the promise of love without the weight of responsibility. They fantasize about marriage as if it's some divine lottery ticket, as if God will just hand it to them, no strings attached. But here's the hard reality. If you are chaotic within yourself, you will bring that chaos into the union. And no amount of romance will save you from yourself. So I'll ask you plainly, why do so many people struggle in relationships? Is it simply fate? Some cruel trick of God keeping you apart from the one you long for? Or is it more painfully a reflection of your own choices, your own lack of discipline, your refusal to mature? That's a question most people avoid because it forces them to look in the mirror. It's easier to blame God or timing or other people than to confront the fact that maybe you are not yet the kind of person who could carry covenant. I once spoke with a young woman who said to me, "I've been waiting for years. I pray, I hope, I dream, but nothing ever happens." And when I look closer at her life, what did I see? She wasn't waiting, she was wasting. She was scrolling endlessly, resenting the people around her who found love, chasing shallow connections when loneliness became unbearable, but never doing the hard work of becoming. Never confronting her bitterness, never addressing her wounds, never cultivating her purpose. And when she met men, what happened? They left, not because they were evil, but because desperation is suffocating. It smothers attraction. It replaces strength with need, and no one wants to be consumed by someone else's unhealed emptiness. Here is the truth you must wrestle with. Desperation is not romantic, it is destructive. It signals to the world that you cannot stand on your own 2 feet. And people don't admire that. They recoil from it. What attracts is confidence, self-respect, the quiet confidence of someone who knows who they are and who they belong to. If you have no mission, no discipline, no self-mastery, you will demand that another person become your entire meaning. And that is far too heavy a burden for love to carry. We must shift the way we think about this. Marriage is not a trophy you get for enduring loneliness long enough. It is not a divine handout. It is a covenant that demands sacrifice, maturity, and responsibility. And if you are not preparing yourself for that reality, then you are not waiting. You are deluding yourself. Stop treating marriage like a fairy tale ending and start treating it like the most serious responsibility you will ever undertake. So here is my challenge to you. Stop waiting. Stop chasing. Stop begging God to drop someone into your life while you remain the same person you've always been. Instead, become the kind of man who could lead a home. Become the kind of woman whose strength and faith are undeniable. Become the kind of person whose very presence radiates dignity, value, and purpose. And let me leave you with this final truth. You do not get the relationship you want, you get the relationship you are prepared for. If you remember that, if you let it burn into your mind, then you will never think about love the same way again. Let me tell you something you may not want to hear. You don't get love by chasing it. You attract it by becoming someone of value. And if you spend your days begging to be chosen, performing for attention, or manipulating circumstances to force a relationship, then what you are really saying is that you don't believe you are enough as you are. That kind of desperation doesn't bring people closer. It drives them away. So let me ask you this. Why do so many of us find ourselves in cycles of heartbreak, rejection, and confusion? Is it fate conspiring against us? Some cruel twist of divine timing? Or is it a harsh reflection of our own lack of self-worth, our refusal to grow into people of substance? The uncomfortable truth is this: love is not blind. It sees character more clearly than words. And if what it sees is insecurity, manipulation, and fear, then it will not stay. I once knew a young man who would throw himself into every relationship as though it were his salvation. He bought gifts he couldn't afford, said hi yes when he meant no, reshaped his personality to whatever he thought the woman wanted. At first, it seemed flattering, but soon every relationship ended the same way: silence, distance, abandonment. And he grew bitter. He thought women didn't want a good man, but the truth was much harder. They didn't want a man who lacked a spine. They didn't want someone who had no mission of his own, who was living for validation rather than standing on the foundation of purpose. His neediness consumed him, and in turn it consumed them. Here is what you must grasp Graspy desperation destroys attraction because it signals emptiness. No one wants to be responsible for filling a void that you refuse to fill yourself. People are not drawn to weakness masquerading as kindness. They are drawn to strength, to competence, to stability. And that doesn't mean arrogance. It means you have established yourself as someone who can carry responsibility, someone who is rooted, someone who doesn't crumble the moment they are not noticed or affirmed. You must change your mindset. Marriage is not some prize that falls into your lap because you endured loneliness long enough. It is not a divine concession handed to you out of pity. It is a covenant that requires that you stand as a whole, responsible, disciplined individual. The man who expects to lead a family must first be able to lead himself. The woman who hopes to nurture love must first learn to nurture her own spirit. Anything less, and what you're asking for is not marriage. It's dependency disguised as romance. So here is the challenge: to stop chasing, stop lowering yourself, stop begging to be chosen. Instead, cultivate yourself, strengthen your faith, clarify your mission, build your integrity, become the person whose very presence commands respect, not because you demanded it, but because you embody it. Then love will not have to be forced. It will be drawn to you naturally, irresistibly, because it recognizes in you someone who is truly ready. And here's the final truth I'll leave with you tonight. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. That reality should shake you. It should wake you. And if you take it seriously, it will change everything about the way you pursue love. Let me confront you directly. God's timing is not an excuse for your passivity. Too many people sit idly whispering prayers for a spouse while refusing to prepare themselves for the weight of covenant. They say, if it's meant to be, it will be, and then wonder why nothing ever changes. But here's the truth: divine timing is not about sitting still, it's about becoming, it's about transformation. And if you are not changing, if you are not growing, then even when the promise arrives, you will not have the strength to hold it. So I'll ask you, why do so many people struggle in love? Is it really fate? Or is it that they've mistaken waiting for laziness, as though God rewards idleness with intimacy? Think about it. Do you truly believe that God would entrust someone's heart to you while you refuse to discipline your own? Do you think he will hand you a covenant while you remain the same broken, insecure, entitled person you've always been? That is not divine timing. That is delusion. I once knew a man who said he was waiting on God for the right woman. He went to church. He prayed fervently, but when you looked at his life, it was chaos. He was drowning in debt, aimless in his career, neglectful of his health. He assumed marriage would fix him, that a wife would bring order to his disorder. But when relationships came, they ended quickly, painfully, because no one wants to build a life on a foundation of instability. His waiting was not preparation, it was avoidance, and avoidance destroys potential. Here's the truth you need to hear: passivity disguised as faith is still destruction. Desperation poisons relationships, but so does stagnation. Real attraction, lasting attraction, is built on the bedrock of competence, of order, of self-respect. It's not about being flawless, but about being in motion, growing, healing, taking responsibility for yourself. People are drawn to those who radiate strength, who are aligned with purpose, who carry themselves with the weight of someone preparing for something greater than themselves. You need a mindset shift. Marriage isn't a prize, it's a responsibility. It's not about being rescued from loneliness. It's about entering into a covenant where two people shoulder the greatest human burden together. The building of a family, the shaping of the future, that is not casual. That is not a gift for the complacent. That requires preparation of the deepest kind. So here is my call to you. Stop waiting passively. Stop wasting years in bitterness. Stop chasing after illusions. Instead, prepare your soul, your mind, your habits, your finances, your purpose. Become the kind of person God can trust with his promises. Because if you do not prepare, you will sabotage the very blessing you've been praying for. And let me close with this undeniable truth. God's timing is never late, but it will always meet you at the level of your preparation. If you are not ready, the promise will pass you by. If you are ready, the union will not just arrive, it will endure. That's the difference between those who wait and waste and those who wait and win. Let me begin with a hard truth. Love is not magic, it is responsibility. And if you approach it like a child waiting for a fairy tale ending, you will destroy the very thing you claim to desire. Most people imagine that marriage will complete them, that a spouse will cure their loneliness, that union will solve the chaos of their lives. But let me ask you, if you are fractured, undisciplined, resentful, and aimless, how could bringing another human being into that chaos possibly make it better? Won't. It will magnify the disorder. So here is the question we must confront. Why do so many fail in love? Is it that God has abandoned them? Is it fate mocking their desires? Or is it perhaps the far more sobering reality that relationships collapse because people refuse to build themselves first? You cannot outsource responsibility for your soul. You cannot pray for covenant while living in disorder. To do so is to demand from another what you will not demand from yourself. I think of a young woman I once knew who longed desperately for marriage. She dreamed of being chosen, prayed fervently for her beaux, but in practice she chased men who devalued her, compromised her dignity to avoid being alone, and grew bitter with every rejection. She called it waiting, but it was not waiting. It was self-sabotage. Her pain deepened not because God was cruel, but because she never became the kind of person who could walk into love with strength rather than desperation. And the tragedy was this: she wanted a man of vision, but she herself refused to cultivate vision. The truth is brutal, but necessary. Desperation is corrosive. It erodes attraction because it signals emptiness. And emptiness demands to be filled by another, something no human being can ever fully do. Real attraction is born out of competence, out of dignity, out of a sense of wholeness. When you carry yourself with order, when you live as though your life already has meaning beyond whether someone chooses you, you become magnetic. And that magnetism is not artificial. It is the natural consequence of responsibility. Here's the mindset shift that could change everything for you. Marriage is not a prize handed out for suffering long enough. It is not God's consolation for your years of loneliness. It is a covenant, the most demanding and sacred of human responsibilities. To walk into it unprepared is to doom it before it begins. You must stop thinking of love as rescue and start thinking of it as stewardship. A relationship is not meant to complete you. It is meant to multiply the completeness you already possess. So my challenge is this. Stop waiting passively. Stop running after shadows. Stop handing over your dignity in the name of love. Instead, build yourself, confront your wounds, discipline your habits, clarify your vision, grow into someone who doesn't need to be chosen, but who is already living in purpose. Then, when union comes, it will not feel like salvation. It will feel like the natural next step in a life already aligned with God. And here is the final, undeniable truth. You do not rise to the level of your hopes. You fall to the level of your preparation. If you want a love that endures, you must build the life that can sustain it. That is the difference between those who collapse under the weight of covenant and those who carry it with strength.